Hello, 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 everyone. I'm Chibi Bree of the Golden Feather Tavern, and today I'll be giving my thoughts on the most recent Node Wars testing. These tests were highly focused, and I primarily played Cleric, so that's what I'll be talking more about from my perspective. Additionally, I'm only allowed to cover the test 1 through test 6, and these were pretty focused, so we typically were only doing them for feedback and suggestion and or bug finding. Overall, I'm going to be discussing the skill tree options, the class diversity, and my feelings as a PvE-focused player. So first and foremost, the skill tree. The skill tree had options more than we had skill points, so you couldn't fill out the entire skill tree. Additionally, a lot of the skills that you could spec into had augments, whether it's something like mana regen, or something like having an extra couple of ticks for like a heal. For testing purposes, we were able to respec the tree anywhere we wanted. And in order for class diversity, choice mattered. For example, the choice that I went with allowed me to go in a more mana regen focus heavy area. But as Burgun talked about when he was on our show, you had to sometimes use a not so ideal skill to get to the skill sets that you really wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, like I said, I didn't spec into mana regen, and there was a path that I could have taken in the skill tree to do that, but that also would have meant that I was more of a DPS cleric instead of the healing cleric that I was focusing on, and party heals and survivability on myself due to wearing plate and using a shield and things like that. And so I also heard from others that the tree was a little frustrating because there were some poor choices you had to make to get to the spell that they wanted.
As I was kind of hinting at a moment ago, there are a lot of different ways to play cleric. I chose typically to play the range back of the line cleric, whereas Burgun and Phantom both chose to play front of the line clerics. Additionally, Phantom and I played primarily in tab target, whereas Burgun was able to play hybrid and action cam. And here are their thoughts.
You know, I actually played a mixed bag, action and tab targeted as a cleric, and it was enjoyable to say the least. I actually had the opportunity to mess around with a few different kinds of strategies. I actually decided to wear plate and a shield and a mace, and I found that the shield was best used in action combat mode, and because I really enjoy being a frontline combat cleric, I found that it was incredible to be able to use my active blocking while casting abilities based on who I'm supporting at the time. It was a great experience to feel the validity of a shield in action combat mode, and the flow of casting abilities was, I mean, it was smooth. I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
And to be able to switch back and forth between that and needing to use my mouse just directionally, I was able to select my allies in the raid and heal them from afar. And so switching back and forth was crucial as a cleric, and to find that middle ground on how and when to use action and when to use tab was an incredible experience to me.
Awesome. Vertek, what was your experience with it?
I loved it as a tank, mainly because also the shield interaction, because you could right click to do your active blocking, which I did quite often, and then you can hold your left click to do your continuous attacking, and then you would stop attacking when you stop left clicking, and stop your blocking when you stop right clicking. It was easy to do like the most common things with just a 1-2, left click, right click, and run around. I thought it was great.
Yeah, Lloyd.
I had zero reason to switch out of action.
Lloyd says you lived forever talking to you, Vertek, and I was like, that's one thing I heard around the community a lot, is like, Vertek's like forever alive.
Well, as clerics, we got, I think you and Chibi, we were focused a lot and people knew that we were clerics within testing. And so being able to see the effectiveness of a shield and getting the feedback on screen of just an infinite number of blocks because Ranger was doing their Ranger things. As I was backpedaling, pulling back from the initial push, it was just, I could see so much potential for strategy, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Felt like
and
I could live forever as well.
Really?
Mhm.
I didn't know that, Phantom.
Nice. Well, yeah,
That's hilarious.
Chibi's a boss. That's been proven in a couple of videos thus far. So gotta
If
take down
that's
the boss first,
true,
right?
If that's true, that's hilarious. Because so for a lot of them, I was able to be on the same team as Vertec, but I think there's like one or two where Vertec was on the opposite team for me.
Yeah. There were a couple where domestic abuse was a theme for the day. So, Chibi, you said you didn't really use the action combat at all. You just went purely with tab.
I went purely with tab. I was actually on the last one I was struggling a little bit, but I was actually more focused on, understanding where things were. Because for me, lay of the land is more important, and we didn't really have too much time. Like, yeah, we spent time testing, but we didn't have too much time to like sit there and play around. So I have no idea how to use the like active attacking that you guys are using. I'm just used to healing and tab. So just stick with what I know while I learn the lay of the land, and then maybe eventually try something new.
Did you try to hold your auto attack and actually keep smacking people around while casting your heals out
Absolutely.
from time to time?
Absolutely.
Like, did that work well?
It was, not as effective. It was good to chip away at them, but it would have to be a scenario where there were others supporting that player supporting me in damaging them. The string basic attack was not super effective as a cleric swinging his mace.
I actually have another question for you, Brigand.
Yeah.
So sometimes, because of how chaotic it got, you can see it on the stream, it was easy to lose people, right? And I believe with hybrid, you're healing whoever your icon is on.
However, your cursor targeting.
So I found it really helpful to kind of reorient myself where people were, because of one of the abilities. It does that whole like honing in missile of healing, if you will. I found that actually really helpful for me because, being in tab, I was able to just tab over to whoever was, needing heals immediately. And then I could reorient to where maybe some fighting was happening. Whereas I feel like I would have not been able to have that if I was hybrid. How did you feel with that? Like, did you find any issues with that? Or because you were toggling back and forth, you felt like it was pretty...
It was pretty intuitive once I got the hang of switching back and forth. Being in action combat, I found it to be a little bit more challenging to stay focused on my target for heals. If I was in a group and I was in the back line and I saw this, soup of combat taking place in front of me, it was really hard to
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on. And so being able to focus on my primary intentional ally to heal them was challenging in action combat. But when I was being focused or when I was in more of a combat mode, action combat was great. And I was able to heal myself, and I was able to backpedal, like I said, towards my other healers and allies like you and a few others. And so my survivability was really incredible. But yeah, as far as like healing my allies in the thick of it, it was good for me to switch back to tab and be able to use the raid window to pinpoint exactly who I wanted to heal. And it was a great UI experience and UX experience to be able to see if they were close by, be able to find them relatively easily. If I had line of sight on them, their name would show up after like running around a boulder or something like that.
Yeah.
And so all of that was really helpful for healing and finding the value in my location on the battlefield.
I do remember, I guess that this is one thing that popped up. So you did... I know Chibi went more of like a healer cleric, but from what I understand from some of the things I've seen, so you went more of like a battle cleric, correct? Like in that spec tree. Do you want to elaborate a bit more of like what those options were, like what you're able to do with that?
Yeah, it's wild how different we were able to play given the lack of stuff we had. And what I mean by that is, the process was servers up, create a generic character, log in, get a scroll to level to 15, get some gear, and then go fight. And we had skill trees. So we had basically skill trees and some armor to pick from. And it was generic armor. Didn't change from test to test. It was just your classic sort of mail, plate, cloth. Your stats stayed the same the whole way. But looking at that, being able to combine just even that basic armor set with some of my skill point choices, because they matter. That's the other part that was really nice is like I had to give up some fairly significant things to be able to spec more towards front line. So I took mail armor, which really gave me more sort of hit points, more physical attributes, less, and I actually did take a mana hit from that. My mana pool was smaller, although my health pool was larger, and then mana regen was slower as well. But that I was able to then sort of spec into just a lot of AoE heals, so that the approach was I had a shield and my weapon, and the approach was just be up their front line swinging. I had some casting spells, smite, I think, and some other stuff. But it was just really heals, healing the frontline players up there with me, and I could persist. It was, I think there's been a lot of conversation about time to kill, but I could last a good while, even 3 to 5 people.
Finally, my feelings about Node Wars as a PvE focused player. I felt like it was well balanced. I really enjoyed it, especially when I was within the group. And we were able to give feedback on NPC response. So initially, for example, the NPCs were grouped together, they respawned really quickly, and you would often feel this experience of being kind of pinched between NPCs and the rival node group. And this may have been a tactic. Additionally, as the test went on, we were able to see iterations of our feedback come into play to where you guys are now able to see the NPCs are kind of evenly dispersed. Combat felt really good. I felt like I was reacting more than going with any set rotation. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and sometimes I had my go-to skill, but I didn't feel like it was push 1, 2, then 3, 1, 2, then 3, oh, pop 4. It was more just reacting to everything going on around me. My favorite thing as a PvE player was being able to kind of have agency within the Node War system. For example, during the stream, you're able to see that we take down a scholar, which increases the opposite team's casting time. I really enjoyed how that was handled and how that allowed us to feel like there was a catch-up mechanic of sorts. And I'm interested in seeing how Intrepid will work on this or develop further on this. Overall, I had a lot of fun testing the Node War system, and I look forward to seeing more of what Intrepid has to offer, not only within this Node War, but also the other events that they had talked about. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on Ashes of Creation, I co-host the Golden Feather Tavern podcast weekly, where we invite guests to come and sit and chat about community topics. Additionally, every Tuesday, we have a Tavern Talk, where we and a group of other people that have been around a while sit and just kind of chat whatever we feel like chatting when it comes to Ashes of Creation. I hope to see you around, and just remember, the tavern is always open. See you there!